Let's get right to our first guest today, Attorney General Richard Blumenthal, Democrat running for U.S. Senate. Mr. Blumenthal, nice to see you back here again.
Great to be here. Thank you, Dennis.
You're now back on the campaign trail. I want to ask you today, because your appearance today is a little unusual in the sense that, as you know, everyone used to joke that the most dangerous place was between Dick Blumenthal and a camera. And you've sort of been laying low recently. You haven't been doing interviews. You haven't been as readily available to the media. And now you're here. We put in a request, I believe it was 8 or 9 weeks ago, to get you on this program. And so now we have you. And we, of course, thank you for being here. You seem like you're tightly managed. Is that the case?
Far from it, Dennis. And far from it, by the way, that I have been lying low. I have been very active as Attorney General, as you know, taking on Google and its Street View program with a very active coalition of state attorneys general from around the country, going after HealthNet and achieving a major settlement there with money coming to Connecticut, but also major reforms going forward to prevent the kind of security breaches that were involved there. And other consumer frauds that we've pursued, for example, the kinds of rental scams that Craigslist may have tolerated on its site, and we're continuing our action on Craigslist involving prostitution and pornography, and of course against domestic violence. Very active, as you know, because members of your team have been involved in it, which we thank you for doing. Domestic violence is a scourge in this country, and we have been very, very public in our advocacy there. So we've been very active, and I am very proud of the work we've been doing over these last 2 or 3 months, and I promised, Dennis, from the beginning of this campaign, that I would put first and make a priority my work as Attorney General for the state of Connecticut, because that's what the voters chose me to do, and that's what I'm going to continue doing very actively and, if you will, publicly.
But you have to admit, things are a little bit different. We used to have your cell phone numbers, and now it's disconnected, and it's a new number, and you used to always come to every media event, and you'd come here if we asked you. And, I mean, you have declined a lot of interview requests, and you have not been as visible. Am I wrong here?
I think you are wrong. I don't think we've declined any interview requests, certainly not from you, and certainly not from Channel 3. But the important point is, I have been traveling around the state, literally to every nook and cranny, as I have done for 20 years as Attorney General, listening to people, carrying on a conversation as I've done, collecting ideas, hearing about the problems where people want me to stand up and stand with them against some of the most significant special interests and the kinds of wrongdoing and law-breaking that they have seen, and also stand up for them in Washington, D.C., where they think nobody's listening. Nobody is doing enough, and not enough people are standing up, listening to them against the big pharmaceutical drug companies, the big energy companies, the big internet companies, the kinds of special interests that they think have taken advantage of them, and they want somebody who will stand up and speak out and challenge.
For the record, your campaign did turn us down beginning in mid-May. And we did call, and this is the first time we are getting you, so, but thank you very much for that. You seem to thrive on the job of being Attorney General. You seem to love it. You're always out there meeting the people and fighting for this cause and that cause. Are you enjoying being a Senate candidate? This is new for you.
You know, I enjoy any job or any task or challenge where I'm meeting people and trying to solve problems. As Attorney General, I've reached across the aisle. I've tried to form coalitions. Connecticut's a small state. We've led the country against the big tobacco companies, for example, against the pharmaceutical drug companies when they overcharged us, the big tobacco companies when they addicted our children, the big energy companies when they tried to build in Long Island Sound that liquefied natural gas facility, and many other special interests where I have boxed above my weight by listening to people here in Connecticut and then trying to get results, get problems solved. And being a Senate candidate, being a public official, involves trying to grapple with the problems that most affect people and standing up for them, being in their corner and fighting for them when they often think nobody's listening. And what has most impressed me is the very strong support for someone to be an advocate as a United States Senator. People see the job in that way. And so that's been exciting and encouraging for me.
When the controversy first broke a couple of months ago, I mean, many people said it was devastating to the campaign. How did Richard Blumenthal, the human being, handle it? How difficult was it?
Well, Dennis, you know, I served in the United States Marine Corps Reserve, and I'm very proud of my service. I was honorably discharged as a sergeant after 6 years. I made mistakes in describing that service. I inaccurately described it, and I regret it. I take full responsibility for it. It was unintentional, but that's no excuse. And I am sorry about it. And I'm sorry to anyone who was offended. I'm most sorry to veterans whose respect I deeply hope to have. And as a human being, I was sorry, and I have been encouraged by the very strong reservoir of support and encouragement for me as a person and a human being, because veterans know I've fought for them and stood for them, and most important, I'm going to continue to champion their interests and keep faith with them, because we need public officials to stand with our veterans and keep faith with them. And I'm committed to a program called No Veteran Left Behind, which would involve educational benefits and health care and other benefits they deserve and need.
You did mention that last time you were on it, but I mean, were you angry? Were you distraught? Did you go in a room and close the door and say, I just can't believe this is all happening? I mean, people all over the country were criticizing you. I mean, was this a tough thing to go through?
I took full responsibility.
No, I understand that, but in terms of just how it impacted you, I know if someone criticizes me, you get a little uncomfortable, and I mean, it must have been the same thing. You must have been upset.
It was a tough time, as I've said publicly more than once. People in Connecticut learned, if they didn't know it, what my wife tells me often, that I'm not perfect. But people also know that I've stood with them against the most powerful interests. I've never backed away from a fight to protect the people of Connecticut. And that ultimately, for me, was a source of strength.
Do you blame Linda McMahon for what happened, for the story, the revelations?
I am less interested in blaming anyone than simply saying, I'm sorry. And now let's move to the problems that really affect real people's lives, like jobs and rebuilding the economy and standing up to the oil companies that receive $40 billion over 10 years in special giveaways, the pharmaceutical drug companies that are getting $200 billion of our money because there's a law, believe it or not, a law that forbids the federal government to negotiate the prices for Medicare drug purchases. Those kinds of outrages are what I want to fight. We're
going to take a quick time out for a commercial break. More with Mr. Blumenthal in just a moment. If you'd like to comment on today's program, you can do so on my blog, The Hartfordite, on WFSB.com. We're also on Facebook, Facebook.com/Dennis House, WFSB, and once there you can look for the Face the State page. Welcome back to Face the State. Much has been made of Linda McMahon's experience at the WWE. Do you think that that qualifies her to be a U.S. Senator?
You know, Dennis, ultimately character will be an issue in this race. And
do you think she has good character?
Well, the people of Connecticut have taken their measure of me. They know that I will stand up and fight for them. They know my record. They don't have to rely on my words.
No, I understand you, but I'm talking about her. What do you think?
And I think character will be an issue for her as well. People will ask, and they should, what is the business that she's run, and how did she run it? How has she treated the people who have worked for her and their families? And did she put profits over people, particularly the health and safety of people? And those are issues and questions that will be answered in the course of the campaign, and people rightly expect that they will be answered.
Do you think she did put profits over the safety of people and employees?
I'm going to leave those answers to the people of Connecticut, but I think there are questions that she'll have to answer, and we'll be able to judge as we go along what her record is.
But you have never, your office has never investigated the WWE, correct?
I'm not going to talk about what my office has investigated or not.
So you're saying it's possible you have investigated?
If there has, no, I'm not saying it's possible or not. I'm just not going to talk about investigations by any authority, whether it's my office or any other that concern the issues or politics of this race.
We're told that they've never been the subject of an investigation by the Attorney General's office, and you're saying it's, but you're not ruling it out. You just
I'm not commenting one way or the other, Dennis, and I cannot comment given that we've never had any action. I can't go back to the time that my predecessors were Attorney General, and I think for me to even imply, and I don't want you to imply that there's been an investigation, would be incorrect.
Let's talk about some other issues here. If you're elected and President Obama says to you in January, you know, Dick, we need another stimulus plan, another multi-million-dollar plan, would you vote for it?
I would vote against anything like the bailout program. I opposed it.
I'm talking about the stimulus program that was...
And I would vote against a stimulus program that was structured incorrectly, in my view, to fail to provide infrastructure support. I think providing money that goes into paychecks is tremendously important. Paychecks that involve rebuilding roads and schools and other kinds of structures that create consumer demand. And too much of the past stimulus plans have gone to other purposes where they failed to provide this so-called stimulus. I think infrastructure is a proper use of these funds.
If Senator, would you have voted for the most recent stimulus package?
I would have voted against the bailout program, and I would have voted against the stimulus package as it was structured.
As it was structured. In Litchfield today, this Thursday, we tape on Thursdays, according to the Torrington Register of Citizens, you said, quote, "We need to go after employers that put illegal aliens to work." As you know, in the city of New Haven, they have ID cards for illegal immigrants. Do you think it's easy to find out where they work because they have bank accounts now and the whole bit? Do you think that the state or the city should be going out and cracking down on these companies?
The federal government has the responsibility for immigration reform, and the state has responsibility for enforcing the labor laws. And both of them should crack down on exploitation of people and hiring of illegal immigrants.
So a restaurant in New Haven that hires illegal aliens, should the state go after them right now? Whoever can go after them, should they go after them now?
Well, the state doesn't have the enforcement responsibility at the present time. They would have to train the state police and divert them for that purpose, and that would be a decision made by the governor as the commander of the state police, not by me as a United States Senator. But
would you encourage them?
If there is evidence that any business is hiring illegal aliens, there should be investigative steps, whether by state or federal authorities, and there should be appropriate prosecution of the employers.
Richard Blumenthal, candidate for the U.S. Senate. Nice to see you. One last question. Will you debate Mrs. McMahon in the fall if she's the nominee?
If she's the nominee, and we do not know yet whether she will be, I will certainly debate her.
Good enough. Mr. Blumenthal, thank you very much for being on the program.